Call this meeting of the Goshen County School District Board of Trustees to order and ask that you rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Are there any adjustments to the agenda this evening?
Yes. Under E, recommended actions, number 1, consent agenda. There's a change of the date for the field trip request. Due to scheduling conflict, this field trip is in this letter H, rescheduled from Thursday, April 21st to Friday, April 22nd. Then under number 3, new business, consider and approve recommendation for 2022 summer school principals. The recommendation is to approve Tyler Forshiner as the 2022 elementary summer school principal and Jacob Martin as the 2022 secondary summer school principal. And then under letter R, under new business, consider approval of contracting with Swenson Consulting LLC. The recommendation is to approve contracting with Swenson Consulting LLC for Title IX formal complaint investigations not to exceed $5,000 through June 30, 2022.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda with the addendum?
So moved.
For a second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 4 then is the introduction of the 2022 student representatives to the Board of Trustees. And then administering the oath of office. So turn that time over to Ms. Bullington.
Do you want to, Catherine, or do you want me to?
Would you please?
We would like to welcome our 3 new representatives. Forgive me if I get names incorrect. But Cameron Rafferty from Lingle, Alex McIntyre from Southeast, and Lacey Groening from Torrington. And we are thrilled to have them here. So, okay, our oath of office, and then we're just going to ask you guys just to introduce yourself and very quickly tell us why you wanted to be a part of this. So, if you guys will meet me up front. You guys stand here because he wants you in the picture, not me. Okay, raise your right hand. Just repeat after me. I do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States,
Obey and the Constitution of the United States,
the Constitution of the State of Wyoming.
the Constitution of the State of Wyoming.
I have not knowingly violated any law related to my appointment or caused it to be done by others.
Or cause it to be done by others.
And you will discharge your duties to this office with fidelity.
Discharged by office with fidelity.
Great, I'm glad to have you aboard. Okay, and Cameron, if you want to just go ahead and start.
I'm Cameron Rafferty, and I just want to speak for my school and represent my school in a positive way and make some change. I am really excited for my senior year. I'm currently a junior, and I think that if I could make something positive in my last year, then I think it will help others step up and take this position as well. I think we need some good leadership in Lingle, and I hope that I can just carry that on
Thank you. Alex?
I'm Alex McIntyre, and I wanted to represent my school because I felt that it's hard sometimes for students to have their voice heard in a school board setting, so I just wanted to bring that to my school. And looking forward to my senior year, I want to be able to carry this on to the next person, so it's not a burden, it's something that they want to do, it's not something that they have to.
Mackenzie?
I'm Chrissy Granny. I wanted to be part of the board. I want to have a positive impact on our school, create this position to be a positive impact for the students at Torrington High School.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're excited to have you aboard. And so as we go through our agenda, we always ask for every motion. If there's any discussion, please jump in. That's your opportunity to have input into any of the policies or recommendations that we might be putting forward. And if it's particular interest, we may call on you for that opinion as we move forward. So thank you. With that, we will move forward with information and proposals with the school presentation and artwork by Trail Elementary.
Good evening, everyone. I want to thank you guys for the opportunity for us to have a brief presentation. Mrs. Cummings and I are going to talk a little bit about reading at Trail Elementary and some things we're doing to promote, excuse me, a culture of readers. So I'm going to turn over to Mrs. Cummings, and we're going to talk about Reach for the Stars.
Good evening. Thanks for having us. This year, Trail Elementary school students have set the goal to read 12,000 books by May. And Tyler and I, when I got the job last year, I met with everything to pull, and one of the things Tyler wanted was for us to build a reading community. And so we talked about some different things, because in the past, there's always been the question of are points the best way to go, words the best way to go. And so we worked to marry the two. And by doing this, we looked for ways that we could get kids reading, challenge them, push them a little bit, and then share the success with them. So we set, last year I taught fourth grade, and my kids read 1,000 words last year, and 1,000 books, 1,000 words too, but 1,000 books over the course of the year. And the pride they felt as they accomplished that was amazing. But I think what I loved more than the fact that they met their goal was how my high readers joined with the lower readers, and they read with them, and they encouraged them, and they challenged them. And so when the whole class met that and they were able to celebrate, they celebrated every single one of them. And they were just as proud of the kid who read 12 books as the kid who read 15,000 books. You know, we had a kid who honestly read 40 books over the course of that year. And so you just look and you see that community, and that's what I wanted. So we jumped in and we did it.
Our preface was, it doesn't matter what kind of reader you are. If you're reading 120 books or you're reading 7.5 books, we want you part of the reading community. Everybody gets to contribute no matter what your reading level is. Take that pride in being a community of readers at Trail Elementary.
So we set the, instead of quarter goals, which has kind of turned into be a quarterly process, just the length of time it takes to award it. We set 250 books. At 250 books, they got the shirts. And so at 500 books, AJ's Dream and a book choice from the book box. This was purchased with activities monies and then scholastic dollars that we earned through the book fairs over the course.
And each of the prizes and celebrations per class. So once your classes reach 250 books, your class receives a shirt. Once your classes reach the 500 books, your class. So it doesn't matter if you're first one to 250, But every time your class reaches a milestone, your class gets rewarded.
And we celebrate in the library and go on. At 7:50, Arby's donated a free meal, kids meal for each kid in the school district or in the school. So they will get the Arby's book kids meal, and then they move on to 1,000, and the 1,000 is the goal, and so we're celebrating it pretty good with that. Pinnacle Bank has set up to provide lunch for any class that's they need 1,000 books, and then we're going to have a movie and popcorn in the library to celebrate it with them. And if every school or every class needs 1,000 books, or the 12,000 books is reached.
Our goal is
Or
12,000, it says 15,000, but
Sorry.
we went, because we had 12 classes, so each class is 1,000 books. Prior to that, we had some more teachers in each grade level, so we just had to adjust.
We have adjusted that. So Mr. Fleischinger and Mr. Fullington and myself, and I'm sure Mrs. Brummel will, sleep on a couch or sleep on the top of the roof.
Yeah, we'll spend the night on the roof at school. So and the kids are like, "You're gonna sleep on the roof?" I'm like,
And some of them
Well, they know
want
I
to
look
join
like
us, but we're saying
hunting
no to
season,
that.
the 10-12 hunting season, doesn't really bother me at all. Kids think it's quite something that we do. So
It is quite.
And they
something
remind
that we're
us
staying on the roof.
daily that they're gonna make sure that we stay on the roof. So it's pretty exciting.
And so let's see how we're doing. As of today, we've read 9,224 books.
And 12,000 goal, we're doing pretty well.
Yeah, 75%, we're 3/4 of the way there.
I think you'll end up on the roof.
Yeah.
I think we're in the.
I planned that we were, I told Mr. Boynton, I said, I've got enough camping stuff. It was really gonna be too big of a deal. And the kids, they're just,
They
they
are.
are so excited that. The principals will stay on the, Mrs. Cooney, Mr. Boynton, that's all they can talk about. Like, I read another book today. Just
And
put it
that's
up on the
really-
chart.
yeah.
You know?
It's been really good. And you'll see the picture is showing the librarians set up that a book stands for what, 5,
I think
Five
each,
books
each
or
one is it 50?
10 books, I think it's 10. So they set up for every 10 books or however many books, each book represents it.
We
And so-
initially had the thought of taking all of our old books that we were gonna take out of circulation and stacking them up to see, but we were like, man, that's a lot of books. So we decided to do a bookshelf of each book represented so many books that were in the school, wouldn't take up so much space.
And they're pretty excited to look at it when they come in the library.
We even have the staff are even included, so I know one staff member, I think they've read like 25 books so far, so they're writing their name down. So each staff member that reads a book, they put it on the list and it goes towards I don't know if it's towards the total.
It's happy.
Is it?
Yep.
So anybody who wants to read is gonna have a book in the total.
Also, then we could have our.
Our
names
books?
in
You know,
there.
next year?
No, I'm talking, don't put.
Might as well, we're already gonna hit the 12,000, so it's not like it's gonna be a
And if any
surprise,
school
so.
board wants to jump up on the roof with us, that would be awesome. So this is the leaderboard. Mrs. Kuchera's 5th grade class has reached 1,000 books already. Mrs. Garcia's class in 3rd grade is at 969, and Mrs. Brummel's class is at 98. And so we're setting up pizza parties with Pinnacle Bank right now, and we'll celebrate it. So we'll end it with just that they reached for the stars. This was a picture of them in their t-shirts when they the whole school made it.
And I'm not sure what day that was, but we met like 250 minutes.
It was
pretty
early.
fast.
It was early.
Pretty fast. So we all got our shirts on, and we got up on the roof, and we all swimming in the sun. And took a picture. It was pretty cool. So, the big thing for us is no matter what we want to use, the culture and community leaders, and I think that we met that goal. And I think it's going to be better and better each year. Add some more incentives. We have a student council. We can get some ideas on incentives for students. We can get some ideas on what our goal should be, and with our student council and that too. So we've got some big plans for next year. It's gonna be awesome. You guys have any questions or anything we can answer for you?
Let us know when you're gonna spend time on the roof.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a nice day.
Yeah, we're kicking
Not
that
this
day.
weekend.
It'll be a Friday, so then I can get down off pretty soon Saturday morning. And kids will, because the kids are thinking we're not gonna come up late, so see us up there before school, and I'm like. It's gonna be a Friday. Yeah, but we'll let you know, sure.
Nice job.
Have you found that kids are recommending books to their peers?
They really are. I don't know. Jen can speak to that too. I just think the kids, it's just been really kind of cool to see. I know I've heard one of the kids saying, hey, you can read this book. I read it in a day. Or, you know, they're just kind of talking to each other in the library, so.
And it is really, I mean, I know I keep rambling, but it is pretty powerful when we have students that struggle as readers, but they still get to count their books towards the goal. And it means so much to them.
And they are wearing these shirts
That they love
every
it.
week.
And that's
They're
how
so
you
excited.
create a culture of reading.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys very much.
Thank
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're getting you ready for the night on the roof.
Yeah, it was pretty.
Yeah, you think.
Well, thank you again. I know that my daughter is definitely one of those readers. She's read a lot this year. So with that, we will move forward with public forum. Before we get to public forum, just as so everybody is aware, Trustee Sussex is joining us via Zoom this evening. So you heard him consent to one of our votes. And so it took me by surprise, but he is there. And so on Zoom and will be participating in the meeting remotely this week. So with that, we'll move into our public forum. There is this 5-minute time limit for public forum and interaction is limited during this portion. We do have 2. Are there any others this evening? Okay. With that, we'll move forward with Mr. Bob Peterson, please.
Thank you. I showed this copy on January 11th. Although I don't have any copies this time, but I want to make sure that Mr. Hurley got a copy of what I discussed on January 11th. Again, thank you to the board members and administration for letting us speak at public forum. We appreciate it very much. On January 11th, I asked about the increase of $3 million in the expenditures for instruction, and then another $500,000 for instruction support. And I asked at that time if you could break that down, give me an idea what that would be used for. It's been 60 days, I've not heard a word. And I bring my contact information every time that I discuss in front of the school board. I don't have email. I do it by phone or in person. I'll be more than glad to come in. I'm retired, my time's my own. But it does really concern me when you have $3 million. Where's that money going? And I'm going to rant a little. Every time you turn around, you're talking about a grant or a federal fund. And that makes it sound really good. Except that people forget that's tax dollars. That's not free money. We're not allowed to spend it like drunken sailors. And all I want to know is just in the county, what are we doing with that $3 million? When it goes from $1.7 million, 2021, or $4.9 million. Where's this money being spent? Maybe totally legit, but it'd be really interesting to see if it is. And then I'm going to make a comment on the letter that the Board of Trustees signed. After I read through the first 2 paragraphs, I was kind of inclined to grab a tissue, but then I composed myself and read through the whole alphabet soup wording of the entire thing. The only thing that seemed to be discussed was all the problems. There was one solution in the whole letter. And then you talk about communication. If you've got a problem, let's state the problem. Let's do something about the problem and move on. I didn't adjust much from the letter because it never gave no solutions. It just gave problems. And how terrible it was for everybody to go through. Well, it wasn't just for the board. How about all the people in the community went through the COVID shock and everything else? Come on, this is Wyoming. Cowboy out. Thank you for your time.
Ms. Danielle Murphy.
Was totally not prepared to speak tonight, but after looking through the close contact protocol revisions, I just had a couple things that I wanted to point out. On page 2, middle of the page, the first solid bullet point says students or staff choosing recommendation 1 or 2 should be permitted to attend all activities regardless of overnight stay. My question to you would be, does that mean if they don't choose those recommendations, they are not permitted? It also says individual school level contacts or outside of school close contacts can continue to come to school after their exposure has ended and the individual has tested positive for COVID-19 in the last 90 days, and to provide an antigen test or documentation of that test in the last 90 days. That's not listed as a recommendation. So as a parent reading that, that would sure seem like I'm being told that that's what I have to do in order for my child to return to school. On the last page, second bullet point, it says if a close contact exhibits signs or symptoms at any time during their 10-day exposure period, they would be required to isolate for 5 days. Again, that does not seem like it's a recommendation or an option that the parents have when you're telling me that they have to be isolated for 5 days. I'm not entirely pleased with some of the changes in this. I think that it's still is telling parents what they have to do with their child, and it's really not giving the parents the option to choose for themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. That will conclude our public forum this evening. With that, we'll move to letter E, the recommended actions. Number 1 is the consent agenda. Are there any items that need to be pulled from the consent agenda this evening? Hearing none, is there a motion to accept the consent agenda, approve the consent agenda?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you for a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded to accept the consent agenda. Is there any discussion?
I would just like to, on K, did Mr. Burley accept the position to?
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the consent agenda this evening, please signify by saying aye.
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 Are there any opposed? Motion carries. Number 2, old business. Consider approval of tabled request for district policy 5147, field trips from Southeast Elementary. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Can you state your motion, please?
I move that we allow Southeast 6th grade students to travel to Yellowstone Park in Cody, Wyoming from Tuesday, May 24th through Friday, May 27th, exceeding the recommended mileage times and overnight stay with clarification as provided.
Thank you. There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
I would just like to say thank you for the clarification.
Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item B, consider approval of proposed revisions to the Goshen County School District school level close contact protocol. Information is found on page 64 of your agenda this evening. Is there a motion? state your motion.
I'll move to consider the approval of proposed revisions to the Goshen County School District level of close contact protocol.
Is there a second? Sorry, to clarify your motion, you move to approve the proposed revisions.
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second,
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded to approve the proposed revisions to the Goshen County School District close contact level protocol. Is there any discussion?
For clarification, this revision would make the entire protocol a recommendation with no consequences to staff or students who choose not to follow the recommendation, correct?
Correct.
It's simply a recommendation.
Correct.
So it puts the power back in the decision making back in the parents' hands.
It would be recommended to the parents, giving them the information and for them to make the determination on what steps they would take next.
And when would this take effect?
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Please.
It would take effect immediately following the board's approval.
Are the school nurses and nurse clerks prepared with this?
They have been aware of the discussion around recommendations, yes.
Thank you.
I have one question about, so is it just up to each building's administrator to make these changes and language aware to each close contact tracer and the nurses? Or-
So with my oversight, all of them, I'll send them an email tomorrow morning, letting them know the word changes and the how they convey that information to individual families that are close contacts.
I would like some clarification on, and it was actually brought up earlier this evening, page 3 of 3, the second bullet point down, the required isolation for 5 days that's in there. If they exhibit any symptoms with everything else going on, allergies, things of that nature, how do we, I mean, essentially, we're still requiring somebody to isolate for 5 days if they show any symptoms that would be tied to COVID, or it could be other things too. So that is a question I would like some clarification on.
Would it work to provide some more clarification into putting recommend somewhere in there? Here's the situation that I find ourselves in. I think the fever-free for the 24 hours, that follows other policy within we have for the health and safety of students. The other piece, I think maybe if we can find a location to add the word recommend, would that clarify it there for you, Trustee Sussex?
Yeah, that would definitely help.
So the way I'm understanding is we replace required with recommend.
Yes. Is that read correctly?
They would be recommended to isolate for 5 days. Any further discussion?
so as a point of order, do we need to amend our motion?
We will need to amend the motion. Correct. Is there any further discussion on the current motion?
Would this at the beginning say, I thought it said we'll be informed. It didn't say that.
I don't recall honestly.
Any further discussion? Mr. Hager, would you be willing to amend your motion to include the changes to bullet 2 on page 3 of 3 to replace the word required with recommended?
Yes.
Got myself into a sticky wicket.
Yeah.
So he's been willing to amend it. Now we'll need a second on that amendment.
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of approving the changes to the Goshen County School District close contact level protocol as presented, including the changes to bullet number 2 this evening, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you to those who worked on that, and I apologize for my absence that evening. Moving forward, letter D, consider approval of proposed revisions to district policy. Yes,
Aren't we on C?
I skipped C. Thank you. I put check mark prematurely. Item C then is consider approval of proposed revisions to district policy 4112.1, professional staff contracts and compensation plans as presented on the second final reading. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the proposed revision to district policy 4112.1 as presented on second and final reading.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. Thank you. Motion carries. Item D then is to consider approval of proposed revisions to district policy 4140, certified and professional staff fringe benefits as presented on second and final reading. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the proposed revisions to district policy 4140, certified and professional staff range benefits as presented on the second and final reading.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
We moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving proposed revisions to district policy 4140, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Item E, consider approval of proposed revisions to district policy 3611.12, emergency closings as presented on second and final reading. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the proposed revisions to district policy 3611.12 as presented on second and final reading.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. I will just say that I appreciate that the superintendent and the policy committee met to discuss this policy. I think this will definitely allow for some continuing of safety, safe events. As we know, our weather changes frequently here and things can change from hour to hour. So I appreciate the foresight here. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Moving forward, item 3, new business. Under new business, item A is to consider action resulting from executive session for student disciplinary hearing. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that in the matter of student number 2022-01-02, we recommend that the student be suspended for the remainder of the academic year, with this student prohibited access to school district property. We recommend the student will continue education through an online program. And we further recommend that a school safety plan be in place prior to the commencement of the 2022-2023 school year.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstention?
Mr. Chairman, I'll abstain.
Motion carries. All right. Under new business, item B is to consider and accept resignation submitted by certified staff members. Specifically, the resignation submitted by special education teacher Michelle Maurer, effective at the end of the 2021-2022 school year. Is there a motion?
I move to accept the resignation submitted by special education teacher Michelle Maurer, effective at the end of the 2021-2022 school year.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Item C is to consider approval of offering administrator contracts for the 2022-2023 school year. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I approve offering administrator contracts as presented for the 2022-2023 school year.
Right, and those contracts would be as follows. Just for the record, Tyler Forshiger is principal, Mark Heyman, principal, Jim English, assistant principal and activity director, Randy Epler, principal, Corey Gilchrist, principal, Trina Nickel, special education director, Tim Williams, principal, 1/3 time, Jeff Fuller, director of curriculum and instruction, and Marcy Cates, district business manager. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion?
I'd just like to offer my thanks to these folks for their exemplary service over the past school year, and I look forward to working with them in the future.
Great, couldn't say that better. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving offering administrator contracts as presented for the 2022-2023 school year, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Item D is to consider approval of offering a contract for the position of Torrington High School principal. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I approve offering an administrator contract to Caroline Hickerson as the Torrington High School principal for the 2022-2023 school year.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Hands off to Mr. Kramer. He brought us a wonderful candidate. She's very highly qualified. So look forward to working with her.
Absolutely. I thoroughly enjoyed her visiting with her, and I also very much appreciated the process by which the candidates were interviewed in the various groups. So excited to have her part of our district. All those in favor of approval of offering an administrative contract to Ms. Caroline Hickerson as Torrington High School principal for the 2022-2023 school year, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next item is item E, consider approval of offering teaching contracts as presented. Is there a motion?
I move to approve offering teaching contracts as presented for the 22-23 school year to Mark Anaya as a trading technology automotive educational teacher for the remainder of the 21-22 school year, pending Wyoming certification. Also, Emily Buchanan as a first grade teacher at Lincoln Elementary for the 22-23 school year. Ryan Bosch as an elementary art teacher at Lincoln and Trail Elementary Schools for the 22-23 school year, pending Wyoming certification. Also, Laura Grosnickel as a district technology coach for the 22-23 school year, and Sarah Speckner as kindergarten teacher at Lincoln Elementary for the 22-23 school year.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm a little confused. We're offering a contract to Mr. Anaya for the remainder of the 21-22 school year, but the motion reads to approve teaching contracts as presented for the 2022-2023 school year.
So we need,
Would you like to wait for Mr. Kramer to return to? Or Mrs.
Ms.
Kate?
Gates, do you know?
Mr. Chair, my understanding is that the intent is to offer him his contract beginning now, as well as carrying into next school year with the remaining individuals on the list.
So he'll be for the remainder of the 21-22 school year and for the 2022-2023 school year.
Thank you for that clarification, Mrs. Kate. Appreciate it.
Okay, very good. So you'll make note of that in the minutes. Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of offering the teaching contracts as presented for the 2022-2023 school year, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Consider approval. Item F is consider approval of contracting for district parking lot striping services. Is there a motion?
I move to approve contracting with Barrow Striping for parking lot striping at Lingle, TMS, THS North, and Central Administration Office in the total amount of $4,250, and contracting with Straight Line for parking lot striping at Lincoln, SEHS Trail, Bus Garage South, and THS Football Field South in the total amount of $3,366.81 for a total of services $7,616.81 funded through the general fund.
Thank you. There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Why was it awarded to two different entities?
Mr. Chair, that was twofold. They both were asked to price each of the locations separately. By awarding to two different individuals, there is a shortage of paint. And so it's somewhat scarce to find the product needed. This allows us to keep two people interested in working for us, and hopefully to get the work done a little faster and contract for lesser than even the one low bid.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, we'll move to item G as that motion carries. Consider approval of contracting for district track resurfacing and painting. Is there a motion?
I move to approve contracting with Fisher Tracks for resurfacing and painting of the district track in a total of $100,776 coming out of major maintenance funds.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion?
How soon will that be done?
Mr. Chair, this is summer work, so they're committed to having it done June, July.
Any further discussion? I believe during our agenda prep meeting, you informed me that it has gone up about $25,000 from the previous.
In 2017, Mr. Chair, in 2017, the cost was $72,704. We would typically go a little bit longer in between the resurfacing project, but due to the exchange zone changes on the painting of the surface, in order for us to host the regional track meet, we have to have the appropriate painting done on the track. And so it is coming up a little bit earlier. And then, of course, you're correct in the increased cost for the previous time when we did this.
Thank you.
Speaking of the track, a few years back, they had some problems of a hole. We've got it fixed? Is that still holding?
we were able to correct the subling issues, but Fisher is aware of that and they will be looking at that and taking any necessary measures that they might be necessary.
So how is it that we're going to actually communicate with the community that during that time, the track is going to be out of commission?
Mr. Chair, when they did this last time, the entire area was secured. It's a very messy process and people are going to see real quick because they're using that red surfacing. Cars will have to be moved. It's known right away that the track's off limits.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, is there, all those in favor of approving contracting with Fisher Tracks for resurfacing and painting of the district track, please signify by saying aye.
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 Thank you. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item H is consider approval of contracting for district tree spraying. Is there a motion?
I move to approve contracting with Long's Tree Spraying for district tree spraying in the total amount of $11,867 funded through the general fund.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And I would abstain from that vote. Thank you. Item I is consider approval of a purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase of replacement student and staff computers. Is there a motion?
I move that we approve the purchase of 250 Microsoft Surface Go laptops for students, 20 Surface laptops for staff, and 50 USB-C adapters from the Microsoft store in the total amount of $227,888.98. And that comes from the general fund tech budget.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, if I may. This is part of our yearly rotation and renewal of computers. So this is to keep us up to date as a certain number of computers expire. We want to keep up to date with those. So this is what we budgeted for to keep those systems continuous. That varies from year to year in the amount, obviously, and the cost varies from those time periods in which we make the purchase.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Item J, consider approval of purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase of interactive screens. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the purchase from Troxel of 23 75-inch new line interactive screens for TMS, THS, Lincoln Lingle, Compass Academy, Trail, and Transportation, and one 65-inch new line interactive screen for THS in the total amount of $52,805.76, purchased through Buy Board Purchasing Consortium and contract.
Thank you. There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Why does everyone get one but Southeast?
In previous purchases, they had already made the purchases from their classrooms.
Just making sure.
Great question. If Mr. Epler would have stayed around, I would have had an answer to answer that question.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Item K, consider approval of a purchase exceeding $5,000 for the purchase of welders for Torrington High School and Lingo Fort Laramie High School. Is there a motion?
I move we approve the purchase of 4 welders and accessories for THS and 3 welders and accessories for Lingo Fort Laramie from Rocky Mountain Air Solutions in the total amount of $27,359 coming from Perkins funds.
Thank you. There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Did we not purchase welders just last year for the same 2 schools?
Mr. Chair, this purchase is in conjunction with the one you're referencing.
Okay.
The purchase was approved. The purchase order was sent to the vendor, and the vendor didn't receive the purchase order. So you're being asked to approve this tonight because the vendor is passing on added costs to us due to timing of the purchase. The price of the welders went up.
Convenient.
Approximately $5,000.
Thank you.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Okay, so we're asking for how many?
There are a total of 7 welders and accessories.
Okay, because on the quote, I guess, help me follow this because I'm not, on the quote from Rocky Mountain Air Solutions, it says ordered 5.
The next line down is 2. Then delivery. So there's a total of 7. plus the
Right, but
delivery.
then you look at the purchase. This is the purchase order.
Oh,
The numbers don't match.
oh, the next purchase order is on the back side of that. So there's 2 purchase orders. There's 4 on the one and then 2 on the next. Or sorry, 3 on the next. A total of 7.
What are we doing?
The front side of this purchase order and then on the back.
Why are we separating them?
Mr. Chair,
Please.
they're separated by school. Page 124 is Clinton High School and page 125 is Plymouth.
That's,
Any further discussion?
I just had a question. Is Rocky Mountain Air Solutions out of Colorado or where that's located?
Mr. Chair, my understanding is that Rocky Mountain Air Solutions has experience in consolidation. The immediate office that we work with is out of Scottsbluff, but the management and the salespeople that we're dealing with are out of Colorado.
Thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the purchase of the 4 welders for THS and 3 welders and accessories for Lingo Fort Laramie High School, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item L is consider approval of contracting with the Institute for Multisensory Education for additional staff development. Is there a motion?
I move we approve contracting with IMSC for additional Orton Gillingham staff development, training and coaching for April 25th through May 5th, 2022, in the additional amount of $30,000. And that comes from the letter C, the CLSC letter C mini grant.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? You referenced Mr. Kramer a couple of times that there some of the grant requirements have changed. Is there any concern that this no longer fits within those requirements?
No, we do not have any concern with that whatsoever in regards to these. They've been explicit in this being directly what they would want to see in this type of grant application.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item M is consider approval of contracting with the Institute for Multisensory Education for training of new in-district Orton Gillingham coach. Is there a motion?
I move to approve contracting with IMSE for training of a new in-district Orton Gillingham coach in the total amount of $6,850. And that's from CLSC Literacy and Impact.
Thank you. There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Item N is to consider approval of contracting for functional vision evaluations and learning media assessments. Is there a motion?
I move to approve contracting with Sarah Chatfield for functional vision evaluations and learning media assessments for 5 students prior to May 30th, 2022, not to exceed $7,500. This is funded to the general fund reimbursable special ed.
Thank you. There's been a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item O, consider approval of proposed revisions to District Policy 4350 as presented on introduction and first reading. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the proposed revisions to district policy 4350, employee use of social media sites, including personal sites, as presented on introduction and first reading.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? My point of discussion from the policy committee meeting is this, and actually the following item on the agenda this evening. Just really encourage all district personnel to be very familiar with these policies as we move forward. Do you have any idea of kind of what that training plan might look like, as this is a significant departure from our previous policy?
I kind of defer to Brian on what his thoughts are, and I think actually now too would be a great opportunity, Brian, to reference what we talked about last night in regards to the phishing and spamming of our board members, and a reiteration on what we're kind of making sure to do and be wary of.
This is a time that we've never seen before, and how people are being spammed and different kinds of malware because of the Ukrainian incident. And so board members and administrators, teachers, education is the #1 targeted area for trying to hit us with ransomware, where they will freeze our bank accounts or all kinds of things like that. This case just sent me a school insurance questionnaire that we have to fill out. It has a number of questions that are related to cybersecurity and things like who has access to all of our mail, our business software, our bank accounts, those types of things, how we do that, how those files are encrypted, various things like that. So I encourage you as board members, they scrape things from our website. They find out who is a business manager, who is a principal, who's a board chairman or a board secretary or whatever. And they they'll ask questions of you that seem to be correct. And they will spook somebody's name. The mail that we had last night was a mail that had Mr. Salcedo's name in the front of it, but the rest of it was not legit. And it was sent to another board member requesting something. And so you just have to be aware of that. And if you didn't solicit something like that, then call them on the phone. They haven't figured out how to tap that yet. So and to address your questions, Chairman. We have, every year, we do a school, public works, I think is what it's called, where we have questions about that and we look through things. So it's pretty generic and it's pretty vague. And I think going forward, we're beginning to work on a plan. We need to change some of our policies. We need to add more. We need to create a committee of board members, community members, teachers, administrators, who will be our cybersecurity oversight committee, who will begin to work on what do we do if we do have a problem, if we do have a breach. How do we address that? What are the areas that we look at as far as what do we retain as important data, and how are we going to protect that? And each individual department of school will categorize their data, and then we will say these are top level things that we must protect. These are lower level, and just go on down and work through that. So there's a lot of things that we need to do. We're going to have to be more intentional about it. In the past, I've been not so intentional. It's just been kind of, we do these things and we sign a little thing and say that we're doing. So from this point ahead, we're going to have to say, we're going to bring that to you repeatedly throughout the school year, and we're going to focus on those things during the future years. I think that's where we're going to be at. It's probably going to be it's going to be more and more. One of the scary things about the Ukrainian thing, you probably all heard it on the news, they said that these hacking groups are going to be helping the Ukrainians fight Russia as Russia tries to hack them. The bad thing is it's called hacktivism, and it's vigilantism that's using hackers. Which is, you go, well, that's what's up with that. You go, what is wrong with that? And the thing is, they don't know where to stop. They can't just stop it. Once you release a worm, it could go worldwide. And so we have to start preparing for things like that, just because people are people like this. So hope that answered your question. It's kind of long, but it is very important.
Thank you.
And I think another piece to that is also instituting that with our communications plan and with our HR public relations position that is designed actually to update and keep informed of those pieces dealing with our staff and other issues dealing with how we communicate and our public relations portion of that.
Can I reference? About a week ago, I received, so when Zach, chairman, emails me, it just comes across as a Z on my phone and then Zach Miller. About a week ago, everything looked exactly the same. Instead of it saying Zach, it said Zachary T. Miller instead of Zach Miller. I didn't think nothing of it. I opened it and it wasn't Zach, but it's not your normal. I mean, it's pretty tricky, and so.
Brian, correct me if I'm wrong. One of the main components is really you're attaching it to an email includes you probably either downloading the file from that email or clicking on a link. Opening an email doesn't necessarily result in you unleashing whatever was in that email, but making sure that if there's anything whatsoever, definitely do not click on a link or open any file that is attached to that email. Would that be correct?
That's correct.
Any further discussion? All right, I have a question, but I'll hold that question until the second. All those in favor of approving this policy this evening on first reading, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Thank you. Motion carries. Item P is consider approval of proposed revisions to district policy 4111.50 and 4211.25, which is internet access for district staff as presented on introduction and first reading. Is there a motion?
I move we approve the proposed revisions to district policy 4111.50/4211.25, internet access for district staff, by deleting the original policy and replacing it with employee acceptable use of technology, including policy title change on introduction and first reading.
There's been a motion. Is there a second this evening?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving policy 4111.50 and 4211.25, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Next is topics for discussion. This is a time for the board members to seek input from each other on timely topics.
We have two new business.
Oh, sorry.
There we go.
Thank you. Two others. Q. Item Q is consider approval, a recommendation for 2022 summer school principals. Is there a motion?
I move to approve Tyler Forsinger as the 2022 elementary summer school principal and Jacob Martin as the 2022 secondary summer school principal.
Thank you. There's been a motion. Is there a second? Second. It's been seconded. Any discussion? And all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. Motion carries. Item R, consider approval of contracting with Swenson Consulting LLC. The recommendation is to approve contracting with Swenson Consulting LLC for Title IX formal complaint investigation not to exceed $5,000. Is there a motion?
I move to approve contracting with Swenson Consulting for Title IX formal complaint investigation not to exceed $5,000 through June 30th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Now, item 4, topics for discussion.
I had a couple of things. Since the student reps, this is their first meeting, I would like to propose maybe a format change to just the future agendas, to offering the student reps a scheduled block of time to just address the board with any of their concerns, or how the previous month went, or anything if they would be interested in doing that.
I think one way, and this might go to it, but in previous periods, when we first started, we identified different topics for them, so we could kind of narrow that scope. I think there would be an opportunity if they had any concerns to still open that up, but I think it allows them, if we or you as trustees, and I think that's what you kind of alluded to, asking for assistance from the other trustees in creating those topics that we'd like to hear for them. Because I think if we leave it broad, I think that it might be somewhat a daunting task for them. But if we kind of focus and ask on certain months, next month, if we give them an advance notice, we'd like to hear from you on this topic, I think that would be helpful for the students, rather than having it kind of grandiose and open on anything that they might want to speak about for them. Unless they have ideas that they'd like to submit. I worry that there would be too many other things that would be not necessarily what they are envisioning for what they need. Maybe that'd be the best question for them. What do you guys prefer, actually? Do you prefer topics or want it open-ended when you would like to have to come?
I agree.
We were able to ask that question, Catherine and I, when during interviews, of what some topic ideas they had, and they all gave us some topic ideas. So we will be on top of that. And we would like to hear from any board members that have specific topics.
So I think
Please
that's-
let myself or Catherine or Zach know of a topic that you guys might be interested in. Well,
Not Zach.
okay, Catherine, right.
Ms. Patrick or Ms. Bullington would be those that would communicate the best there. And what I would probably envision if we could get those topics to you at least 2 weeks before the board meeting, so you have plenty of time
Yes,
to prepare.
that's
Very
our
good.
goal.
Okay. Very good. Any other topics for discussion this evening? So I just want to thank the members of the board for the kind of the format change this evening. I know it's a little bit tricky, but that has been something that a few community members have approached me about, is we use the term so moved. And when I read the agenda, that there's a recommendation versus an actual motion. And so I think that it does clean that language up a little bit the way we went through our agenda this evening.
Mr. Chair, would you be amenable to move to approve? I move to approve the item.
Yeah, I think that might require some work from our board. Yes, we would probably need to change the way that it is written, that our agenda is composed, but that is something I've reviewed a few other districts' board agendas to make it more concise, the language, so that move to approve is appropriate in those situations. So
Thank you.
I will work with Lori to see if we can clean it up to make those changes.
Thank you.
Another question that came up, it's come up when we addressed, there is a memorials policy that you will see on the April agenda that will be coming for approval to memorialize district students, staff who have passed. And so, but through that and then additional conversations with community members, I'm curious, does our policy software have the date that each policy was reviewed so that we can bring them up like on a triennial review cycle? There's some of these that have been pulled forward that are 15, 20 years old that we're not getting. So I'm worried that it's not even appropriate anymore, that it's not applicable. Mr. Kramer?
So yes, there are some dates. That actually is our goal, is to get on a rotation with them. We've been trying to get through the ones that have had immediate recommendations from either our attorney, or we've had issues that have come up. But the goal would be to get on a rotational basis for all of our policies for review and then acceptance.
Okay. Thank you. The last topic on here was the discussion of the self-evaluation and the setting and timeline for that. Is this work that we still want that we want to proceed with?
I think we should.
Okay.
Maybe I'm a glutton for punishment.
Well, I think it's per our policy that we do this, and so I think we do need to participate in this. Do we want a work session to each individually rate ourselves, and then the board send those to Lorraine and then review that at a work session on specific actions we can take to improve in these various areas, or just in a board meeting? How do you how does the board feel without a work fest?
So I filled out my evaluation this afternoon and gave it to Lorraine, and then I think we see the results after we all turn ours in. So, and then in a work session type setting.
In a work session.
Mr. Chair, if I may make a recommendation that one of the other districts and how they have provided that as kind of almost a continuous self-evaluation. They take a component at each meeting and then they self-evaluate themselves. I do like the idea of having a time period and actually having that total, but I think there's some value in having discussions on a monthly basis in the regular session to inform the public in relation to what are the expectations for the board members and how are you truly evaluating yourselves. And then how that discussion then kind of conveys of this is, or the interpretation of, for instance, if I could just take a look, builds and maintains positive connections with the community and staff. There might be different variations from trustee to trustee in regards to how they view that and how they perform that. So I think there's valuable conversation to be had during this discussion time period to really kind of go in depth about, oh, that I didn't realize that that's something that you do to do that. Maybe that's something I personally need to do. So I like the idea of almost on a yearly basis doing a total and then providing that data and information on how you as a board feel. But then as an individual, I think it can be very powerful on a monthly basis also.
So with that, do we want to hold a work session in March? Currently, there is not a work session scheduled to review this.
Are we going to review the whole thing or just review how we want to do it?
So I think I think we should all complete it and return it to Lorraine. She can compile the results that we receive, and as trustee Gurley stated, we can then get together in a work session and kind of review each one of these. And then I do like the idea of ongoing, having some more discussion. So this doesn't become a dead document, right? Something you complete and it goes away, but something that kind of guides us in our effectiveness as we move forward.
So we're going to complete it once on ourselves and once as the board.
Correct. Yep. So
The board as a whole.
you'll rate yourself as an individual and the board.
Okay, I see.
And then
Okay.
we'll review that together, and then we'll just review it going forward. So work session in March, are we nodding or are we shaking heads?
Sure.
Nods. Okay. What are we looking like for schedules there, Mr. Kramer?
So typically, if you're looking at the fourth week, you'd be looking at the week of the 21st. We do have a salary relations all-day meeting on the 21st. We do have a possible policy committee on the 22nd that could preclude a work session if it is so desired on the 22nd. Or whichever, or if we want to look at a different week, we can also do that too.
Would the 29th potentially work? And that would give us,
I would not be able to attend that evening. The 28th would work for me if that is a Monday evening as opposed to a Tuesday evening. I believe on the 29th, Mr. Sasano and I would not be able to attend.
the 28th work.
Yeah.
And if we could have them do by like the 21st.
Yeah, maybe we could have them due to Lorraine by the 18th to give you a few days, then that following week to compile them for us. Okay, so it'll be due to Lorraine by the 18th. we'll meet on the 28th to review. In a work session, do we want to start at 6 or 7 p.m.?
6, please.
6, please.
6. 6 is.
All right, 6 it is. All right. Any further topics for discussion this evening?
I'd just like to invite everybody in this room and your families and extended families to the Ford Event Center Thursday night at 6 p.m. The Trailblazer girls are playing the #1 team in the state. So the larger, rowdier crowd we can get there, the better. They've had a very successful season and we hope to finish out well.
And on those same notes, congratulations to our Southeast girls for they brought home the state championship. And, for the strong performance from both Lingle and Southeast schools this year.
Lingle Wrestling had a very good outing.
Yes. Lots of great themes in our sports programs.
Not only that, but our drama, I understand our drama club is also going to be performing on a national level in Indiana over the summer.
That is correct.
So that's wonderful.
Pretty impressive.
And after qualifying from this fall, yep, that's correct. And then their musical will be upcoming within the next couple of weeks, as you find it, and they are doing, oh my goodness, it's escaping me. It's in. Thank you. Beauty and the Beast. I was thinking of the Disney and the lion and everything else, but the Beast, yes, yes. So that I've heard great things that will be, and the middle school just finished up with theirs. And it was outstanding, as I understand it too. So great fine arts opportunities, and I know right now we have a choir concert going on, or probably finishing up. But lots of opportunities for kids. That doesn't matter whether it's fine arts or sports. We all know the more activities we can engage kids in, the more successful they will be.
I know that was meant in a very positive tone, but can we remind our district staff that if we can refrain from those types of events on second Tuesday night? Unfortunately,
there really isn't, especially in spring, opportunities to avoid sports and other conflicts. We've had that conversation that they do try, but with the number of dates and number of activities that we have, conflicting with a board meeting is something they try to avoid, but with the number of activities that we have, there will be a number of times we will not be able to do that. But yes.
Future meetings, then, the next regular board meeting will be Tuesday, April 12th at 7 p.m. We discussed our additional work session and then the superintendent's report.
All right. So first I want to actually just go back, and I want to try to do this more often, but in the consent agenda, and this is part of the consent agenda piece, but I really want to thank Wagons West Realty, Landscaping Plus, and Bob's Roofing for their donation of the 6.5 foot by 11 foot LED display that will be in the Torrington High School Gymnasium. We greatly appreciate so many of our businesses and the activities that they support, not only through a donation like this, but I know with banner sales and things, we greatly appreciate our community and the businesses that we have to allow us to really provide some great opportunities for our kids, because without their support, we wouldn't be able to have the type of programs that we have, and greatly appreciate their work and support. The next thing that I had is the attendance information. So from February, one of the things that, again, I kind of concentrate on is the light green and dark green are increases from the previous year in that column F. So as you can see, as we progress down, Lincoln Elementary, we do have some declining enrollment within that. One of the deceiving things here is going to be in the future years, and we're going to notice this is a constant, because we added the transitional kindergarten program. The state identifies them as kindergartners, even though they are in the transitional kindergarten and their second year is kindergarten. So you'll always see that decline in numbers from that previous year, because there's approximately in between 13 and 15 students that will not be going on to that first grade classroom that are identified as kindergartners in this report. The other pieces then Southeast, moving on down, Southeast High School. Yellow indicates a slight decline, but less than 5 students. As we progress down, so our total from the previous year, as you can see, we were at 1582 this year. In the month of February, we're at 1570. And then the previous month, we were at 1575. And so we've kind of had that variance of 5 students. We did go up from 1565 in the previous month before, so in December. So we have had some increase and continuation, and it looks to kind of be stabilizing. As you can see from the column G is a comparison of the previous month, many more green in that also. There are some yellows where we had some declines, and we do have some declines at THS in our total. One thing to keep in mind, primarily a larger majority of students that are enrolled in Platte River School do come from Torrington High School. So there is kind of that addition, and as you can make those comparisons in previous years, if we made that comparison and said 20 of those students at PRS would go on the total of Torrington High School, that would put them approximately 331. As you can see, that would then exceed previous years' enrollment as we have that added in those additional years. Then in other information, here. And because when we look at the juniors and seniors information, what I decided this month was to share the graduation rate information for this month. Next month, I want to also talk about the juniors and seniors in regards to the percentage of students that we have pursuing 4-year degrees, 2-year degrees, military, and the workforce. And so that correlates to our ACT scores, which I think is very important, because as we start to discuss our strategic plan and what makes a great school district, what makes a great school, I think it's going to be very important to take a look at our data in regards to what we use as a determining factor, because obviously ACT is a piece for an emphasis on college readiness. And so if we're focusing on some of the other things, it's important to take a broad view of some of that information. And I think that will be important as we kind of progress in that strategic planning. But I did want to share our graduation rate data. As you can see, this is from 2021 down to 2014. One of the pieces that I think really I would love for the Wyoming Department of Education and our legislature to really take a look at the 4-year model. Right now, we are strictly counting on when you enter into a high school, and if you do not graduate in 4 years, you are not counted as a graduate. That doesn't take into account, we have a number of students that will graduate with a high school diploma in 4.5 years, 5 years, 6 years. To me, the importance is the ultimate culmination of getting and receiving that high school diploma. And so I think there should be, especially when we look at an alternative school capacity, when we have an emphasis on careers and receiving the diploma, I think there needs to be an identification that, yes, our concern is having a student have a diploma, and it doesn't matter at which point in time that takes. As you can see, the right column, column C, is the state average. For the last 4 years, it's hovered around 82%. As you can see, we've exceeded that in these past years. We did have a slight decline from the 86% last year to 84.3%. All in all, in comparison, very proud of our graduation numbers, and we'll have that continuation of that conversation as we move forward. I think another piece that we do still need to investigate and take a look at. And we started that process through PRS. And I know some of you that were privy to that conversation in regards to the graduation requirements and increasing the number of credits that we talked about from job experience going towards a diploma at PRS. I would love us to see us have a further discussion on different varying emphasis on our diplomas, whether that be a higher emphasis on career courses, or if it's an emphasis on core courses for certain diplomas. I think we've seen that in other high schools, and it was referenced in our policy committee, but I think there's some work to be done to offer more things for students. Mr. Hager and I had a meeting just the other day that I think in the future, to really serve our kids better, we need to really start looking at high school years in a completely different fashion than the way I per se graduated or the way Trustee Hager at the time graduated, because as we experience with our children, they are in a different environment than we grew up in. And so how are we adapting that high school environment to fit their needs? Because I think there are some challenges as we face what it looks like to have a high school diploma, and that really requirement to get a high quality job or to move on. There's a higher emphasis, but I also think we have such varied students now that we have the ability to have students get their associate's degree before they get their high school diploma, or we have the ability to have students on a track where they're getting a welding certificate, and that's the avenue that they need to pursue. I think we need to really explore how we are looking at our high schools in the future, because quite honestly, the way our students are interacting in high school and the way it was 10, 20 years ago has dramatically shifted. And I think we need to shift with those times. That actually covers all the items that I had, other than kind of already referenced it, but congratulations to our winter activities programs. One thing that I did, our indoor track program, the county did an excellent weekend also. I really appreciate a thank you to our transportation department. It was not easy over the weekend, as I can attest to. We had people going everywhere, and we had snow all over, and we had kids having to grab bags on their way to Cheyenne and staying in Cheyenne when it was thought that they might be able to come back, and then staying an extra night because of road closures. I know I was part of that up in Casper also. So thank the administrators and the transportation department and our bus drivers, because they are phenomenal, and they have an ability to kind of change their plans and roll with it, and not cause any stress for any coaches or administrators. And I greatly appreciate that when making those tough decisions.
Thank you. So I would like to see this data with the state ACT average and our district's ACT average on top of it. Graduation is one thing, but it's only helpful if they're actually well prepared.
That'll be the next month. So that's what I had planned on for the next month. And then I want to actually include in there, because we have, it's not a clean report. And that's another thing I'd love for the state to see is EWC and University of Wyoming do an excellent job of providing us reports for their students that go there and how they're doing. If they go anywhere other than those two colleges or universities, it's really difficult to get data to see how our students are performing, because it is one thing to have an ACT score, which I think is helpful, but it is certainly not a guaranteed indicator of success in college. That I would actually much prefer to have information on our graduates and how they're performing next year, because I think that is a really strong indicator, and I use my own personal experience on that. I believe to myself, I far exceeded my ACT score, because that was one test on one day, where I think you take out some of the grit and determination when you're looking at the ACT scores alone, even though they are a very valuable tool in regards to scholarships and ability to kind of make that determination. It's that balance. It's real tough to figure out what that perfect formula is.
Thank you. Any other discussion this evening? Hearing none, we'll stand adjourned. Thank you.